Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh WrestlePlex. Now, here is, pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. And with me, as always, is my co-host, the dog-faced gremlin, Mark Tipton.
Oh, now you're poking me now. You're just jabbing right at me. Yes, the dog-faced gremlin. That is an appropriate nickname for the subject matter of this week's edition of the 30-minute Midas Touch podcast. Because once again, this week, it's going to be Unhappy Mark Tipton Week. Because we're going to discuss another subject that I have a very negative viewpoint on, and I think we're going to have a bit of disagreement on this, but that makes things interesting. This week, our topic is NXT 2.0 is what they want it called. I prefer NXT 2%. You may have nicknames of your others own for what you believe it is, and that will be in the eye of the beholder. But this week, we want to discuss the new and improved NXT 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, this has caused quite a bit of stir within professional wrestling. Me personally, I like the look. I know it's a lot more colorful. The old NXT, it was very martial, very male, very, dark, is a good word. And they decided, hey, let's lighten this up. So they went with a broad color scheme, to say the least.
Oh, is that what that is?
A broad
color scheme.
A broad color scheme.
All right.
I actually think that's, and this is something WWE does quite a bit, is they take something from other companies and they twist it into their own. Mm-hmm. AEW's original video packages were multicolored like that, with different colors popping out and stuff like that. And I think they took that and said, oh, how can we use that for NXT? Right. So I really think that was kind of the thought process there. The NXT, I think a lot of people like yourself probably look at the original NXT or the last 8 years, whatever it's been, with kind of rose-colored glasses.
Yes, we do.
I mean, it had problems as well. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, it was definitely a wrestling fans product. You know what I mean? Very no frill.
How novel a concept.
Yeah, how novel a concept. And I enjoy that part of it. Now, what I don't enjoy is you tell me that it's professional wrestling like that, but then you go out and you kick out of 87 finishers. So
I understand.
Yeah. So there's kind of that. But the new NXT, they've brought in a bunch of new talent. They have a new look, and this is where we are.
Well, it's interesting that we started right there. I had not contemplated debating color schemes, but that's exactly where we're going to start, and I understand completely. I would like to say that there was criticism that NXT, particularly in the move to the Capitol Wrestling Center, had become too dark. Mm-hmm. Because the arena was very dark, and outside of the spotlight on the ring, it did have kind of a cave feel.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimate criticism. I can't argue with that. I agree with that. Here's my argument, and in the past, NXT has looked somewhat differently, particularly when they were at Full Sail University, I would argue.
Yeah.
I think it was adapting to the arena they ran presently. But it is one thing to say, hey, we need to brighten it up and, well, turn on more lights. They're WWE, they can do that. Mm-hmm. I think it is very much another thing to turn it into what I will give credit to Jim Cornette for this description. He referred to as unicorn vomit. I cannot say that was originally in mine. I struggled for a way to describe what I was witnessing, and I do want to credit Mr. Cornette for coming up with that incredible description for what we were looking at. Unicorn vomit. That's a very different thing in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the color scheme stuff is, we talk about turn on more lights. It used to be in wrestling there wasn't the arena wasn't lit up like that. The arena was
Right.
always dark.
Sure.
You saw the first maybe 1 or 2 rows, and then there could be 50,000 people out there. You wouldn't know it because you couldn't see
No.
past it. And that was kind of the magic behind a lot of it. Even though there was only 1,500 people at a taping or whatever it may be, you didn't know that because you just thought it was a wrestling event like the ones you go to at the Spectrum or Madison Square Garden or something like that. So I missed that about professional wrestling. We actually try to do that here at Pro Wrestling Mid-South is dim the lights and that kind of thing. So and WWE was the ones that go, well, hey, let's light the crowd so everybody can see it, and that's great when the crowd loves your product. But in the situations where they're sitting there on their hands or they're on their phones or they're not paying attention, and they're piping in noise that's not there, and it's obviously not there because you're watching the people not react.
Thank you for pointing that out.
So that's part of the problem, and that's just a wrestling problem. That's not an NXT problem. That's a wrestling problem overall.
Right. And because I have become more and more cognizant of the piped-in crowd noise, and I do constantly find myself watching. Basically, I watch people's hands. If you're hearing applause, you should see it.
Right.
And when people are really into something, often they tend to lift their hands over their head if they see something they like. I'm watching the body language more than I'm listening because I know that's not necessarily something I can rely upon. And I watch it, and well, as far as the ambiance, during one edition of NXT 2%, I did notice a 2.0 chant, which sounded about as half-hearted and unrealistic. There's no way I can know this, but I firmly believe there is a stagehand, a timekeeper, or someone on the payroll
Right.
nudging the crowd to try to get them to chant, because I do not see anything that would cause the crowd to spontaneously chant 2.0 of all things.
Well, the pandemic era, and we've talked about this before. I knew we were heading in this direction a long time ago when we started getting further and further away from what we consider classic old school professional wrestling, and the more we got into the television side of it, I said, hey, we're going to have a laugh track in no time, right? And sure enough, within 5 years, we've got John Cena and the Fiend at WrestleMania with a laugh track. You know what I mean? And I think that's the kind of stuff. And then with the pandemic era, that kind of force-handed, because wrestling, like we always said, is a spectator sport.
Certainly.
Right? And so when there was no crowd and no one there, it became a problem, visually on television.
Unpleasant to watch.
It was very, like you said, very unpleasant to watch. So how do you fix that? Like, to me, I would go, hey, let's make it more realistic here. You understand? Let's really make them believe, because we don't have a crowd now. We have 2 guys in a ring. Let them beat the hell out of each other. Let them show them what professional wrestling is going to be. You don't have to worry about, popping everybody every 8 seconds. You know what I mean? You can just go out there and you can wrestle, and then the commentator's job is to put it over like it's supposed to be too. So, that era and that thing that led to them piping in noise, and they had this this weird humming crowd sound throughout the entire broadcast.
Right.
And obviously there was no people there. I mean, stuff like that. And we've talked about the instances too where they refilmed things and a cut scene, next scene, shit like that, and people got injured, and Edge and Orton, unfortunately, with the had a great match, but then there was this one shot where Randy Orton had Edge hooked for his hanging DDT thing off the second rope, and the camera angle was shooting right above Edge, looking at his face. There's no possible way to get that camera angle. And then you immediately cut the camera and there's no camera there. You understand? It's just things like that that really, people don't think that they matter for professional wrestling anymore because it's 2021. Oh, we all know. No, you fucking don't. The whole point is we're trying to make you believe anyway, right?
Right.
So why not, follow that train of thought as far as we can?
Right. Yes, the cinematic match has been a huge problem. It could say it fed into the Alexa Bliss matches. and there's a lot of dissatisfaction with those. But apparently that has come to an end now, among other things. And then we had, even the Undertaker and AJ Styles match, which may have been the best example of cinematic. They did it about as well as you could do. They took it out of a ring, just totally. Well, yeah, if we're going to go with it, let's go with it. And they went and had I guess, a boneyard match or whatever it was they called it.
Yeah, but saying the best cinematic match is kind of like saying, congratulations for winning the one-legged race.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, does it really fit into the world of professional wrestling or Olympics or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I was trying to be generous.
Yeah,
and just go along with it. But no, because I don't want to get too heavy-handed in my criticism, but it's just when I watch. I guess what I watch when I watch NXT 2.0, let me stay on that, is I watched that show. And honestly, I got scared the instant I heard they were changing the name. This when I saw the color scheme and the logo. I knew because I have experience. I'm not new here.
Right.
I experienced WWE CW. And this is very much what WWE CW feels like to me. And so I think maybe this is, once bitten, twice angry. Because here I am again. Because ultimately, I think the idea of a professional wrestling or even the WWE, even sports entertainment, is to entertain the audience. But I keep thinking, by watch their decisions and the direction they're taking, that they're taking it directly away from what I, as a member of the audience, have responded to for some time now.
Right. You make some very valid points there, Mark Tifton. It's such a hard thing. Like, obviously, like, I don't like the very unrealistic vignettes, like the marriage stuff and the honeymoon and like all that kind of stuff. That takes me out of professional wrestling. And if I want to see something like that, then there's 1,000 other shows on television that I could watch. So to me, doing a piss poor job of it on wrestling doesn't do wrestling any favors, and it doesn't do television any favors either, because you're producing bad television. So the one thing I also had trouble with NXT is I don't mind. Obviously, we need new talent. We need fresh talent. We need that kind of stuff. But they've just dumped a truckload of them all at once. And it's like you have to establish new talent. You have to have established talent already there to put them over. So that eventually they can become established themselves. But it takes time. It's not something that you can do within 2 weeks. So when you've got 7, 8, 10 guys vying for television time, they all get kind of lost in the shuffle, and that's what we're seeing. Like, the only guy that's really standing out is Bronson Steiner. I'm not gonna.
Thank you. What is that garbage? I'm about to get started on WWE and their names they come up with people again.
Right.
The way they invent these names, or they trademark names of people, then not allow them to use them later. This is a constant irritation. You and I discussed Braun Breaker, and I'm gonna call him that because that's what they call him.
Mm-hmm.
As silly as it is, because here's the spoiler alert: he is the son of Rick Steiner. I watched this because, and for those of you who haven't seen the product to see him, in the way he looks a great deal like Rick, and when he speaks on the microphone, I hear Scott. I mean, tremendous potential, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
But they gave him the name Braun Breaker. If you're going to put him in a singlet, the multicolored singlet, similar to Rick Steiner, and just by his mannerisms, he takes on a lot of Rick Steiner in the ring.
Yeah.
And the announcer referred to him as dog-faced gremlin something another.
Yeah.
You're doing all that. When I was watching live, I thought, is this some kind of knockoff of Rick Steiner? Why would they do that? Because silly me.
You didn't know it was actually.
I did not realize that was his son. And then when I looked at to find, I was like, oh wait, that's Rick Steiner's son?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just say so?
Right. And that's a huge problem for me too. It's like, he's wearing the singlet, he's doing the mannerisms, he talks and acts like a Steiner, does the Steiner line, did his dad's, famous power power slam spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did Uncle's Steiner recliner.
Yes.
Did all the kind of stuff, but calling him Steiner is too much of a ripoff. You understand? Like that doesn't. Yeah. That doesn't compute with me. I mean, he's a very, very talented guy. Like, definitely a what we would call like a blue chip guy. Yes, he's green in some instances, but he's on another level as far as athleticism goes at this stage. Like, he's been wrestling less than a year because I remember when he had his first match down in Georgia. He was actually on a car with someone I knew, and I asked about him. I was like, "How did he do?" He's like, "Oh, he did great," you know. And I was like, "Well, I'd love to book him sometime." You know, I was thinking he was going to be on the independents for at least a couple of years, so I get the opportunity. But like, to no avail. He was already called up and pushed to the thing, and one of the problems. I say one of the problems. It's many. I think the color scheme, and you can maybe tell me if I'm wrong or if you have this thought process. To me, if they're going to put NXT as, well, this is the new talent, upcoming kind of thing, then if we have new talent, then we need to have new fans. Does that make sense? So like younger fans to like these younger talents. So like if you were a wrestling fan of Brock Lesnar when you were 14 and it's 20 years later,
Right.
you know what I mean? That makes sense, right? So maybe they're trying to create that kind of thing, and that's kind of what I felt with them doing that. But then on the other hand, they're starting to walk that line of more edgy kind of stuff. Like
Right.
they're using a lot of foul language, which we talked about that before. I'm not a fan of the AEW
Right.
using it, and this is kind of the same scenario. They're using it, I think, just to use it.
Right. They've done it. They've inserted it, and it seems, and to me, it stands out because early in the show, there was a promo segment where they were talking and members of the team hushed. It was Hit Row was out there,
Yeah.
and one of their members was about to, apparently about to use a vulgarity, and the other members, hushed him down like you weren't supposed to do that on television. But then 30 minutes later, there was a person who blatantly did one right on, and I was like, well, is it bad or is it okay?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
I don't know that I don't know if they think beyond segment to segment. But you mentioned something about taking young people and not building them over time. I expect Braun Breaker to be the NXT champion by Survivor Series.
Oh yeah, he's definitely being groomed for that, obviously. And that was another thing that was kind of odd to me too. And I say it's odd to me, but it actually kind of makes my point earlier, which was, if we dump all this new talent in, right, and this is supposed to be a new era of NXT, but Tommaso Ciampa wins the title, to me it felt like a step backwards. Like if we're trying to move past that era, then why give it back to Tommaso Ciampa? First of all, why give it back to Tommaso Ciampa if every time that Tommaso Ciampa's been champion, he's been injured? So the curse of Tommaso Ciampa alone should have been, we might want to rethink this situation. But like you said, we need established talent to put over the new talent, and that's kind of what they're doing. But how much better would it have been if Breaker would have won that four-way and won the title, and then Tommaso chased him, and they had a series of great matches?
They could have, although a person getting an NXT title shot in his first appearance seems a bit ridiculous. Although there was a person on this week's show whose first match in NXT was a shot at the Cruiserweight Championship.
Right.
And
that was horrible too.
And it is just they're doing. I mean, it is so glaring the direction they're going. And I think the idea is to see. Well, we've used the term transitional champion.
Yeah.
I think Tommaso Ciampa is a transitional champion. I was disturbed when I heard days before the debut of NXT 2.0 or 2% as I preferred, but when Samoa Joe was giving up the championship, vacating the title, I thought, now that seemed to strike me out anywhere. It was posed as being a injury of some sort, and maybe it was. Maybe I'm a little too tinfoil hat here. I am not at all confident of that. I think they may have look, Samoa Joe's over 40 now. He's in his 40s. He's not in the all new, all different young talent. Samoa Joe is not that guy.
No.
And I think they were wanting to set that aside. And I think they're using Tommaso Ciampa as a link back to those of us who were actually fans of real NXT.
The bridge.
Right. He's the transition to the new, who is pretty clearly going to be Braun Breaker.
Right. And there's a lot of other talent on there too that's, may have all the potential in the world, but because I'm just seeing new guy after new guy after new guy, it kind of gets my head spinning. Like you talk, what the Hit Squad or the Hit?
Yeah, Hit Row.
Hit Row.
They're coming to SmackDown, by the way.
Yeah, they're coming.
They've been drafted.
I heard that. I like that. That's another one of those gimmicks that I don't get. You understand?
Right.
Like Bianca Belair, I don't resonate. That does not resonate with me. So like I don't get it, and like you said, in their promo style, if you watch their promos, they're all kind of talking at once,
Right.
or talking over each other, in between each other, and stuff like that. And that is one of the most annoying things in wrestling. That's one thing. The Rock is known widely as one of the best promo guys ever.
Sure.
Right? And if you watch The Rock, especially in these last 10 years when he's come back off and on, like when he has a program with somebody and he has a promo with somebody, he lets them talk. He does not interrupt them. He gives them their moment to shine. And if they can fucking get over on him in that moment, then more power to them. But most of the time they just hang themselves out to dry. And then,
Right.
and then
he comes in.
And he comes in and annihilates them. But he gives them the opportunity. It's not like, I've had several guys that, like, the only way they could get over in a promo was by constantly talking over the other guy or arguing with the other guy. That's not what the promos are. And promos are meant to tell the story, too. So let that heel tell his story. I'm the babyface. I'll tell my story. And we'll come out like we're supposed to.
Well, when you mentioned Bianca Belair, that stuck out to me. I am hopeful and fond of Bianca Belair. Perhaps it's my bias as she's a Tennessee grad. And that,
As are you, correct?
Yeah, well, we all have our biases.
Right.
And perhaps that is. Now, I would say a valid criticism is that particularly really in her whole WWE career, she's been rushed. I think it's fair to say that, particularly when she made it to the main roster, she made her way to the top of the women's division rather quickly, and I thought maybe she would have done well to kind of, like you were describing, build up and get a little bit more support and acceptance of the crowd before they pushed her to the level she is. But she is there, and I do still have hopes that she's going to be a long-term part of the roster.
Yeah, but where do you go from? That's what we're talking
because
about.
you rushed it.
You rushed it. Where do you go from here? Like I've said this to my guys too. We have guys that have been with me since they were 15 years old. You know what I mean? And I could have made them heavyweight champion when they were 18 if I wanted to.
Sure.
But I didn't because I was like, well, they're gonna be champion one day. You know what I mean? So let's develop it and make sure that they're ready for that spot. And when it happens, it'll be
a bigger, more satisfying event for everyone involved,
yes.
Both the talent and the audience who, hopefully has been there week after week seeing him make his way to the top.
Now, the exception to this is you have to ride the wave of popularity, whatever it may be. If you look at the early WWE stuff, it was very quick. If someone got over, I mean, they were, like we said, the 3-year rule. They were over for about 3 years solid, and you had to capitalize on that. And now that's not what they do at all. Like if you get over especially if you get over on your own, they completely cut your legs out from under you. You know
exactly.
What I mean? So that's an issue. But then you have to get over within their confines, and then even if you do get over at their request, there's still a possibility they're going to shut your water off at some time, like Braun Strowman, like Bray Wyatt, Fiend. I mean, how many can we name where they had all this momentum and then it went nowhere or didn't get as big as it could have been because they shut the water off. One of the best examples, obviously, is Zack Ryder, and I go back to that a lot because it was so blatant. You know what I mean? Like he was so over. And they were chanting his name when he wasn't even out there. And you know what I mean? And that is a very special thing in professional wrestling. And they just ignored it. They were like, fuck that. He's not getting over. You know what I mean? Like, well, he's already over, so why not use that to your benefit? But some people don't see it that way, I guess.
Well, you just pointed directly at what I'll try to restate in my own words here. It is, I feel, as a member of the audience, and I don't like referring to myself as a part of the universe. I'm not a universe. I'm not part of the universe. I'm a fan. I'm a member of the audience. And perhaps, if it helps, call me customer, if that helps you understand what I'm trying to get across.
Right.
That's the way to look at me. But there has been an adversarial relationship between the people in charge of World Wrestling Entertainment in particular and those of us who are customers of World Wrestling Entertainment. And I would cite one example as Daniel Bryan, or what should be appropriately referred to, Bryan Danielson now. Everyone remembers the famous scene in, I believe it was in Seattle. They were having a ceremony to promote an upcoming title unification match between John Cena and Randy Orton. Both great talents, but talents I had seen wrestle each other approximately 257 times. And during that segment, the audience, my people, that's the way I'll refer to them, hijacked the entire segment in an attempt to get the management's attention again. Says, no, no, no. Here's something we're interested in. Here's something we want to get behind. And they got behind it, and it was almost reluctantly that Yeselmania happened.
Yeah, and like that situation was just how you say that? Naivete on their part, because they were in Seattle. Why would you ever put him in that segment?
In Seattle.
Someone should. I mean, Michael Hayes of all people, especially, should
Sure.
have looked at that and go, "Oh, well, if we put him out there, there's a possibility they may chant for him. Let's keep him in the back, or
Right.
put him in something else."
Yeah, he didn't need to be there.
No, he didn't need to be. He wasn't the focal point of that at all, and that's what made it so fucked up. Was that they hijacked the show, and he wasn't even supposed to be
Right.
recognized.
Right. You gave the audience the rope to hang you with.
Right.
In a tortured analogy there, but it's something I have witnessed on, from time to time that comes up where we have to almost beg them to do. Hey, here's something we're interested in, and I would say NXT, and that's why I consider this, a slap in the face of the fans. What they're doing, it was literally taken away. NXT was our thing when everything else went away, and really all there was WWE. Mm-hmm. NXT became the thing we could gravitate to. Mm-hmm. Because sports entertainment often rejects us. And what they did was NXT, I've got the shirt, we are NXT. I've got it at home in the closet right now. I don't know if I can wear it again or not. I do not know. But we got behind that part. What was supposed to be developmental became a third brand.
Right.
Not because of that was the idea that WWE had for it, but because of the fervent support of the audience, the people at Full Sail that chanted NXT. I've never heard anyone chant WWE, WWE, or WWF. It's never happened.
Right.
It happened in ECW. I've heard it a little bit in ROH because that was where a lot of people went to ROH after ECW disappeared.
Right.
But NXT had that vibe. It had that identification between the audience and the promotion.
Yeah, because it felt more like a grassroots thing. Obviously, WWE and WCW and AEW and things like that, they feel more, like corporate.
Thank you.
Corporate wrestling.
Oh, password. We just played password.
Corporate wrestling. So, like I can see how NXT and ECW and people like that, because they feel like you said, we are NXT. We feel like we are a part of this.
Yes.
Now, to play devil's advocate like you do many times for me.
All right.
So, can you imagine, though, like you as a wrestling fan, you're going to watch regardless, right? You know the answer to this, so you might as well.
Yeah, this is the point. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you can count on me to watch, generally speaking.
Exactly. And most people that are lifelong wrestling fans, we are conditioned to just watch because we love wrestling so much and we yearn for it so much that we will watch sometimes absolute garbage, but we will still watch. So WWE's thought process is, and this isn't entirely wrong, is if we've already got them, then how do we get the others? Right? How do we broaden the spectrum of what we're doing? And while I'm with you as far as, professional wrestling needs to be presented in this way, you know what I mean? Let's look at it like that. If you're a wrestling, if we know that half our audience is going to be lifelong wrestling fans. Well, the other half needs to come from elsewhere. So how do we get the elsewhere?
All right. Yeah, that line of thinking is something that has come up, and let me deal with it as quickly as I can. I have used and I think I've said on this podcast before that I feel that the WWE takes me for granted.
Yeah.
I do. I absolutely believe that. And when you're the only game in town, you are in effect a monopoly, which they were. They're at the national level. There was Impact, but they're not. They were.
Not only were they a monopoly, but like the government didn't recognize that they were a
Right.
monopoly, and then that on top of their independent contractor situation. It's it doesn't strike you odd that WWE has never had any of these issues.
And I think that may come to an end someday. They have dodged it thus far, but it may come back to bite them.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things I want to point out is one of the things that you've often said is that pro wrestling is a niche.
Yes.
It is. You refer to it as the biggest niche, but it's a niche none the same.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is we, the audience, we are your niche.
Right.
And you reject us.
Yeah.
And it's one thing when you're a monopoly.
Yeah.
You are no longer a monopoly. As many problems as I have had with AEW, and I do, I'm at the point I need AEW to succeed. I desperately need that company to succeed. And so that's why I am now buying stuff from AEWshop.com, not WWEshop.com. Yep. There's a reason for that, because I need them to succeed. And let me be NXT 2.0, what it really is to me. This is something I do not know. I cannot prove. It is merely a rumor. But to me, it looks like a wrestling promotion that is designed as a sales pitch for a corporate sale. It looks to me, if you were trying to, and let's say hypothetically they were trying to sell the promotion to NBC Universal, would you not say, hey, here's what can be done? And the way it's presented and the talent that they're using, to me, it looks like designed because everything's about the young demographic and all those sorts of things, all those things that TV people worry about. Yeah. And they think is foremost. The wrestling, well, anybody can do that.
We can teach them how
to do
that.
Can teach them how to do that. But
right.
we got to have the right demographics, because that's what motivates everything in television. And you get that unicorn vomit that I see on Tuesday night every week. That's what you get. Here, NBC Universal, we would like to sell our promotion. Here is our sales pitch to you.
That's not a bad theory. It's very possible. Like I said, I'm an advocate of Vince McMahon keeping the company just because I'm more happy with the devil I know than the devil I don't. And I think that a corporate entity that has no thought process about professional wrestling would be the detriment to all the business.
Well, I would like to point to history again. There has been an instance in which a corporate entity bought a racing promotion. It did not go well. In fact, the corporation wanted nothing to do with wrestling.
Even though it was one of its most popular products.
Highest rated program on their networks.
For a couple of years.
For a couple of years running, they rejected it all the same.
Yeah. Even though the last year of that contract, they lost like $60 million.
Well, yeah.
That kind of put the nail on
that company are well known.
Yeah, obviously. But anyway, we are well over time. We're at 33 minutes right now. I think we did pretty good. But for myself, the Golden Boy Greg Anthony, and my co-host, the dog-faced gremlin, Mark Tipton, watch NXT 2.0.
Oh, no, 2%.
And thank you and goodbye.